by Swami Paramananda ji. Today we are going to do the third chapter and see what he talks about silence. The name of the chapter is The Service of Silent Living. Sri Ramakrishna says, "Keep thine own sentiment and faith to thyself. Do not talk about them abroad. Otherwise, thou wilt be a great loser. Keep thyself aloof at the time of thy devotions from those who scoff at them and those who ridicule piety and piousness." Then there is an ancient Jewish proverb which says, "Silence is a healing of all ailments. Silence is good for the wise. How much more so for the foolish? All my days I have grown up amongst the wise, and I have found not of better service than silence." Maharaj says, the definite sign of a spiritually minded person is his silence, tolerant attitude. Bees, until they have found the flower and tasted the honey, make a loud buzzing noise. But the moment they taste the honey, they become absorbed and cease to make any sound. So it is with us. Before we find the truth, we argue and dispute and challenge others who differ from us. But when we come in contact with something deeper, we go silent and do not try to force it on others' minds. We try to live in our own life, and as we live it in our own life, inevitably it reaches our lives. Spiritual qualities are infectious, just as evil qualities are. One bad person can drag down many others by his evil propensities, while those who have noble ideals and loving characters uplift others merely by their silent influence. When we study external conditions, it is sometimes very discouraging to see how slowly this influence works, but it can never fail absolutely. And if we wish to produce a lasting effect on any character, it is better not to have it work too quickly. When we set fire to hay, it makes a tremendous blaze. Then, in a moment, it is all over, while a log of fire, which takes a long time to kindle, burns steadily and is dependable. Similarly, in spiritual awakening, if the person is over enthusiastic and emotionally excited, he exhausts forces and the effect wears off. If, on the contrary, his deeper nature is touched, it may not show much outwardly, but the result endures. The best help we can bring to others is not by word of mouth or by any active exertion. The really vital help, that which is lasting and far reaching, is through our silent life. We live for an ideal. We believe in something which saturates our thought and absorbs all our interests. Sometime and something which permeates our whole being, and it is bound to reach others. Each life is a radiating power which has either a good or an evil influence. We are continually giving something consciously or unconsciously. If nothing else, we give our atmosphere, which we create through our attitude of mind. Whatever we touch on the outside is influenced by our inner life. A little study will prove to us how true and tangible this influence is. According to that also, do we draw evil or good things to us? These facts, however, should not discourage us in any way. On the contrary, they should inspire us with new hope because they show us that we have the power to create. We can make and unmake. We can make better conditions, by our thoughts and feelings. If we are ardent and sincere, also the conditions which exist we can unmake by changing our habits of mind and body. If our misery, look at this, what he's saying. If our misery or misery is the product of wrong thinking or mistaken action, then certainly we can remove it by altering the order of things and living with discrimination, thoughtfulness, nobility of purpose. It is not a matter of studying books or subscribing to a creed or believing in a dogma. It lies far deeper. It has to do with something which abides in the human heart. Outside things have little to do with it. It deals directly with our own life. God can never become a reality for us merely because someone has said so. Only when we begin to have that feeling vividly within, in our own soul, does His reality become an established fact for us. Then no one can make us doubt. We see this in the lives of great ones. They live for their idol and they die for their idol. But even when they die for their idol, death does not end their mission. In dying, they live more truly for it because the things which are of spirit can never be annihilated. So the spirit cannot be destroyed. This is something, however, which we cannot grasp theoretically. So long as we believe in material conditions and our heart craves for things pertaining to this world, we may quote from the scriptures and talk of holy things, but our words will produce very little effect. A man may preach eloquently, advising people to renounce all evil and selfishness, but if he has within himself the least selfish instinct, he will undo his own words. Living is the watchword. It is the keynote of all spiritual philosophy and religion. Men may fight over doctrines or dogma, but when we get down to the fundamental facts of life, we find no room for discussion. As soon as we have the living consciousness of the great realities of life, then all differences vanish for us. It is only when we have not reached the depths that we dispute and condemn. A noble character has a universal influence wherever he is born, in the East or in the West. His unselfishness, his spiritual fragrance are not limited by any boundary line. They reach all hearts which are yearning for the same qualities. The only way we surmount our own limitations and all the conditions we call evil in this world is through the living of a life which is part of truth or God. Whatever the name we give Him, there is but one cosmic fact, and we are all parts of that great fact. When we realize this, we realize the ideal of fatherhood, and having realized that, we also realize what is meant by brotherhood. When we know that we are all children of one divine being, naturally we become united. But this does not come through mere adherence to a church or a creed. We realize it first individually in our own heart, and afterwards we realize it in the universe. If, however, we do not realize it in our own heart through devotion, we may seek it everywhere in the world, but we shall find it nowhere. That is why the Indo-Aryans lay so much stress on going within and realizing our deeper nature, if we would attain true love for God and for our own fellow men. It is good for us to get away from our selfishness or from ourselves, to forget the physical self with its name and form and littleness, And the best way to do this is by seeking a spiritual ideal. No one can dictate to you what this ideal should be. No one has the right to tell you that this is the only ideal and you must follow it. God is infinite and all abiding. He is just as much yours as anyone else's. He is within you as truly as he can be anywhere. You have just as much right to know him as any saint or seer ever had, but you must awaken within you the sense of his presence. We all have it in some degree, just as we all have an immortal soul, but an ignorant person does not know it, so he constantly suffers pain and torment. Therefore, we must try to develop our spiritual consciousness. Whatever may be our idol or the form of our faith, if we have a really yearning desire to know the truth, he who perceives all our thoughts and innermost feelings will surely reveal it to us. Then will such true devotion and consecration fill our hearts that we shall live, move, and have our being wholly for his service and the service of all his children. So may our hearts too open for the service of us, of ourselves, of his and his children. Hope you enjoyed today's reading. Do stay tuned to Devakshar, like and share our videos, and subscribe to our channel if you already have not. Thank you so much for being with us. Do join us in the next session of this book, Silence as Yoga. Thank you once again for joining us. Namaskar.